Hello and welcome to ETBFSI and ETCFO.com by the Economic Times. I hope you are enjoying our budget series. This is the third episode on budget expectations. My name is Amol Dete, and you're watching actually this special episode of Pre Budget Expectations Budget 2026. I must tell you that this is the most
Can't
influential
hear
show
you.
because we've been running this since last 6 years. And In this particular episode, I would like to tell you that you can watch this live show on ETBFSI, ETCFO.com, as well as our social media platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Uh, so, friends, readers, viewers, let me introduce my speakers first for this particular panel discussion on the budget expectations. My first speaker for this panel discussion is Mr. DK Joshi, Chief Economist, CRISIL. DK sir, glad to have you. My next speaker is Anita Kapoor, former chairperson CBDT. Anita ma'am, glad to have you.
Happy to be with you.
Thank you. My next speaker is Yatish Wahal, Director Finance and Legal M3M India, which is a real estate firm from Gurgaon. Yatish ji, glad to have you.
Pleasure is all mine.
My next speaker is Mr. Sachin Gupta, CFO of LT Food. Sachin ji, good to have you.
Thanks, Amol. Thanks. Same here.
Sure. And my last speaker for this discussion is Mr. Rajat Kumar Singh, Group CFO, Acme Solar. Rajat ji, good to have you. So, speakers, let me begin by asking one common question to all of you first, which is very common. What is your budget wish list as we are marching towards February 1? And the finance minister is going to tell us what is there in the budget, but we have loads of expectations from her. So, let me ask you, DK sir, first. What is your wish list? What is it that you would like to see in the budget?
Well, I think first of all, the budget is being framed under a pretty benign, I would say, domestic macro scenario. Growth inflation mix is good, and global growth also has supported. But I think the uncertainty and volatility is extremely high, and the financial markets. I think we today also we witnessed. I think the rupee is under pressure, and capital flow volatility continues. So it's a mix of benign macros and the there is volatility in the financial sector, which is external led, so to say. Now, in this environment, I think the first requirement, and it also goes into my wish list, is that you need to maintain very solid macro fundamentals, and I think fiscal prudence is one of them. And central government has been very prudent in maintaining its deficits, etc. But I think if I were to take a step back, I think despite low inflation, despite RBI cutting rates, despite uh, uh, most macro parameters being benign, the oil prices being benign, the yields have remained very high, the central government bonds. So the center has done fiscal consolidation, yet the yields are high. That's telling you that the domestic overall fiscal situation is under pressure, I think, and the pressure is coming from the states, which are overshooting their borrowing targets and keeping the overall yields high. So I think in that environment, I think it's also important to put in place procedures which will ensure that the states are more prudent, their fiscal marksmanship improves, and the borrowings don't overshoot. Otherwise, I think this yield and fiscal disconnect of the yield and central government fiscal disconnect will increase. So I think that is one point, that I think we need to look beyond the overall fiscal deficit of the central government and look at the aggregate. So that's number one. Second, I think is on the front of private investments. I think it's becoming very clear that government is maintaining its momentum on public investment only as far as the overall economy is growing. So it is there is normalization of government capex, and I think over the last 2-3 years we've also seen that even meeting those budgetary targets is becoming a little difficult. So the private sector has to take the baton, and here I would like to say 2-3 things. One is the generic thing that, okay, we need to improve the business climate for private sector to step in. But I think more importantly, I think government will which it is already doing, will have to support the corporate sector via incentives which have a sunset clause, something like a PLI. Here, I think we've seen great success in electronics, but when you come to things like chemicals, etc., or let's say not chemicals, but the ACC batteries, let me take that example. I think we find that the interest is a little muted there from the private corporate sector, and I think even when there are incentives. So the point I wanted to make is that the domestic value-added component, which I feel is a little higher at this juncture, maybe that needs to be reduced, and the government can focus on increasing the scale first, and the value addition part can gradually improve as it is improving in the electronics sector. So that's point number two. And then finally, I think for sustaining consumption growth in the economy, we need jobs. And I would point out two sectors. One is tourism, and other is the vocationally trained professions, because there is demand for these products, demands for these labor services. But if you look at tourism, I think there is a K-shaped recovery across the world. The wealthier are getting more and more wealthy, and they require a different kind of experience-based tourism, which I think we have not been able to latch on. So that is why Indians spending money abroad is higher than foreigners spending money in India on travel and tour. So it used to be the other way around. So that needs to be reversed, because we need to align ourselves with the demand for tourism across the world, which is rising for high-end tourism. And here, this profession is also AI proof in the sense, because it is experience based, and you have to physically visit, and it also generates jobs. Vocational, globally, among the fastest growing professions is plumbers, electricians, mechanists, etc. And domestically also there is a demand. So I think we need to encourage that also. So these three things I would say. And I think reforms, it's understood that government has already pressed the pedal hard, and it's a process, it's not an event. So that process has to continue, and I think the budget should be announcing which areas they're going to focus on specifically, because not everything will happen through the budget, it will happen outside the budget as well. So a slightly longer statement, but I think that's my wish list.
No, I think it's a long but a meaningful wish list, sir, and always, nice to listen to you for adding that and giving us some thoughts to begin with. Anita ma'am, let me come to you, listen to your wish list first. But let me tell you honestly, I'm more excited to hear your version on how was your experience dealing with the whole budget all these years. First, you tell us about that, and then you share your wish list.
See, budget making is a very interesting exercise, particularly from the tax policy angle. You have a lot of data to work on. There are certain issues which politically are very sensitive. So you have to kind of uh, work out your own compromises, taking into consideration the interests of revenue, interests of public, interest of political compulsions, which are also sometimes very genuine in the way they are driven, because they articulate where the general public is either hurting or where a small taxpayer is finding difficult to comply with. So it's a very delicate operation. You are all the time on walking kind of on eggshells, but it's very interesting. How at the end of the day, all interests converge to get a document which at least we expected from the taxation angle, that it will respond to all interests.
Right. Sure, ma'am. Let's move to your wish list then. Apart from your experience,
My
yes.
wish list from my policy head as a former taxation expert is that I want stability. Basically, stability, clarity, simplicity. I don't want any change in the tax rates. As it is for individuals, if you see, where income up to 12 lakh gets tax rebated to zero tax, where our per capita income is less than 3 lakh, I think it's a very decent rate,
Okay.
very good rates that you have. I don't want any further reductions in tax rates. You see, in a country of our size, where you have more than 1.48 billion people, we get about 8 to 9 crore tax returns, out of which 5 crore tax returns, surprisingly, are zero tax payable. That means the taxpayer did not have any tax liability. And this is for the 2 years before figure that I have. And now with this
Right.
12 lakh kicking in, you'll find even lower taxpayer. So if out of 1.48 billion people, when the government statistics show that almost 75% of the population is above 15, that means they are earning in some form or the other, then you have this small taxpayer base, and then you keep reducing the tax rates when your compliance levels are not to the order that they should be. I don't think we want any further. And I also don't want any kind of cluttering of the tax code with further exemptions or deductions. Exemptions or deductions increase litigation. They are inefficient. You incur tax expenditure in terms of giving these tax breaks. You don't know how the tax breaks actually operate in the field. So why should you expect a tax code to deal with issues other than pure taxation issues? You want to support some sector, do it directly where it can be monitored. Trying to clutter a tax code with tax exemption, in my view, is not the right policy. Third issue that I have is allow the new Income Tax Act 2025, which is getting into operation from 1st of April, time to stabilize. Do not make our act another periodical. We saw the fate of 1961 Act. This new act has been prepared with great effort having been put in to make it simple, easy to understand. So that would be my third take. And the fourth take would be, in law, we must reiterate that whatever government circulars are issued, clarifying certain interpretational matters, those are binding. We should not have interpretational differences varying from one assessing officer or one commissioner appeal, then again creating a bad impression. That would be my take on what the budget should not do or should do.
Extremely relevant point, ma'am. And coming from your experience and expertise, I think this matters the most specifically on the interpretational differences, because I think every case is in arbitration or tribunals is only because of the jurisdiction issues, the interpretation issues. So thanks for adding that, and let's hope for the stability, clarity, and clutterlessness in this budget. Thank you for adding that. Let me move to Yatish. Yatish ji, the first question that I have as a as a human being and a customer in the country is, sir, घर खरीदनी मत है, affordability नहीं है. Is there anything that you think government should do specifically so that people can buy houses? And then your wish list.
Yeah, Anmol, a very relevant point. I don't want to be seem to be sort of using the national stage to market a product of M3M, but there are different segments, and we've identified this as an opportunity rather. Today, we were just before we all started, we were having a discussion on AQI and the weather condition and the air quality. Today, there is now today the need, as is in Japan, where people don't live in the downtown area. They live, or the habitat is there in the suburbs. You have a very good infrastructure where you have good metro connectivity, you have good railroad, you have good highways. See, earlier when our forefathers were there, civilizations would move around rivers because water was the source. Today, in today's context, it is wherever the highways are going to move around, the habitat should be there, and infra is going to be key. We need to move to developing new areas and geographies not concentrate on areas where there's hardly any land bank left. We really mean on acting on what I'm sort of discussing right now. We have just taken over and taken that leap and come up with a very high tech livable township in what used to be called Manesar, but what today is New Gurgaon. The suburb is today very much, because of the connectivity, it says 15, say 20 minutes from the airport. We took the plunge. We have developed a 155-acre township, which we call as the Gurgaon International City. And precisely coming to your point, today we are offering an apartment there in the range of 1.5 to 2 crores, which is a sweet spot, which is the spot that you wanted, that, if somebody is wanting to come and work in Gurgaon, somebody who's just passed out of college or is 3 or 5 years into working, is just started, if he wants a pad of his own, a place of his own, we have given that opportunity today. And we believe that going forward with the way the government has really worked on the road network and how MOTH has worked on developing the road infrastructure, today this is a reality where you need not be based out of the central business area. You live in a place where the AQI is very good, where you have green available, where you have water bodies available, where you can enjoy life. You have all your necessity in the vicinity, including school, medical, healthcare. And yes, the price point is affordable.
And what about the good wish list, Yatishji?
Yeah, so Amol, as was pointed out by Dr. Joshi, our parameters, the economic parameters are doing well. What's important today is, and Anita ji had also sort of been very kind to expand on that. Today, we are in a macro environment where there is global uncertainty. These are uncertain times. If you see how the rare earth metal, including gold and silver, are sort of moving ahead, these are times where India today is sitting at the cusp where stability, if the budget was to guarantee, stability, it's not something very maverick that is required. India has consistently been very pro-business. There have been, what I would say is, certain policy back and forth. As ma'am was suggesting, some various commissionerates giving different views. There is requirement of certainty. There is requirement of consistency, because the world is looking forward to an economy, India being one of the largest consumer base. If we were to give them that certainty and become predictable, I think we would have achieved the goal and become the investment hub of the globe. What Dubai has been able to do, I think that is what we need to achieve, where people believe in the fact that there is consumerism. We have enough money, we have enough spending power. As individuals, not as a corporate, as individuals, I would want the tax slabs to be rationalized further. It's already been done. The alternate scheme that was introduced, the exemption limit, so that we have more free money available with us, surplus available with us to spend and put into the market. That in turn is going to create jobs, is in turn is going to create and boost consumption, and that will aid in the economy. India doesn't suffer from lack of capital, is what I often tell my colleagues when we discuss. What it suffers from is the confidence in terms of the visibility. And this budget should focus on reducing the execution risk and offer incentives that are required. Anmol.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think meaningful thoughts there, Yatishji. Let me go to Rajat. Rajat sir, solar renewable energy has been the talk of the town. It's in fact always the flavor of the season, top in the list. What is it that the government should specifically do, according to you, in 2026 budget to push solar along with your quick wish list, sir? I think Rajat's video or network got some issues, so he's invisible right now. Let us wait for him. But let me move ahead with Sachinji. Sachin, hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
And same.
yes, Anmol, yes, I can hear you. There was certain network issue at my end also.
Yes, I think today the god of network is not in favor, but I hope
Correct,
the god of the finance will still listen to us and maybe try to
correct.
copy what we discuss here. But Sachin, share your quick wish list and maybe add some of the points from the FMG sector that we need to push.
Sure, Amol. So, first, I want to highlight regarding the government aims regarding the Viksit Bharat. Viksit Bharat, as you talk about the Viksit 2047 Viksit Bharat. So, we
Hmm.
want to make a 30 trillion economy, a developed economy as such. And in that also, what government is eyeing at? Government is eyeing at creating new jobs, creating almost 80 lakh jobs each year. Each year, annually 80 lakh jobs. That makes a almost a 16 crores additional jobs that should be added in next 20 years. Secondly, the government is aiming at a GDP growth of almost 7 to 8% each year.
Yeah.
GDP growth
Hmm.
that should be there. The
Hmm.
third factor is increase in the exports, because now I will touch upon, because my as a company as mine, the almost 65% of my revenue comes from the exports itself.
Right.
These kind of factors, and in this also, if we talk about the kind of industry which I am in, that is the food processing industry. The food processing industry, as per the government data, employs almost a 2 to 3 times of the employment on a per crore investment that it makes.
Hmm.
So any kind
Hmm.
of additional investments made in the food segment, food processing industry, gives me additional employment, that can create additional employment, and that can work with the Viksit Bharat agenda that the government is taking up, and that is there. So as far as these things come into the mind picture, because every time we are looking into that, the private investments are not making place. Why are they not making place? Because, as you know, there is lack of demand that is coming in. As DK
Okay.
Joshi sir stated, there is the K-shape now that curve is coming up. There is a demand for
Hmm.
the high-end products, whereas there is a demand for
Hmm.
the lower is lower going. So that
Hmm.
that doesn't create a demand in the FMCG kind of industry. The FMCG
Yes.
industry requires a stable kind of environment, where there is a demand from the mass, or the FMCG product, in which the company I represent to. So there should be certainly certain type of incentives that needs to be
Hmm.
provided, maybe a PLI 2.0. But that PLI, in fact, the PLI that was initially given, that was more or less related to more of big companies, big units. And if you want to have a food processing, maybe a bhujia or some kind of snacking business kind of things, now you require an
Hmm.
investments of 10 crores. The 10 crores investment might be sufficient for in order to take my products, RTE or RTC products, globally. So that kind of incentives that needs to be provided, a thorough think tank, rather than creating a big
Yeah.
companies for having investments of 100 crores plus of investments, that might not take place, considering the kind of situation or environment in which we are. So that kind of things should be in place for a further growth.
Agree.
Adding secondly,
Agree.
what explains
Yes.
from this budget itself, because as you know, there are certainly certain the geopolitical situations that are coming up, the
Hmm.
geopolitical things that are there is quite uncertainties out in the environment. No one knows uh, kind of situation, the tariff situation, or the kind of situations we are facing into. So some kind of certainties need to build up in the system itself. The system, the in the system itself,
Right.
that gives a confidence boosting. Because as you might have seen, the last year, what had happened, almost $20 billion of investments got out. That led to rupee depreciating and other things having its repercussions, and that, because you need that investment, the certainties in the economy itself, rather than having a broader based, that will lead to a overall consumption level increase, overall consumption increasing, the economy boosting, the GDP growing, and the employment being generated in the economy itself. And as far as the tax front comes now, because being in the tax, there is, I endorse the things that there should be a single jurisdiction rather than the multiple jurisdiction you can see in the GST. GST
Hmm.
once it is being there is a central state, and at every time you can have a any time any state level department can look into the GST of the other, whereas it is a destination based GST. But the law is not framed on that basis. It is not a destination. Each department or state in a remote area can take up the GST matter relating to any other one, and whole lot of, and whenever it is the whole lot of chaos and other things are being there. So
Sure, sure, Sachin.
simplified GST and the overall ease of doing business, that's what our expectation is from this budget.
I agree with you, Sachin. I think most of the CFOs have a lot to talk when it comes to the budget because they expect a lot. These are very single window clearances, just GST registrations. In fact, a lot of new age company CFOs told me that GST
Correct.
registration in every state is sometimes so painful. But thanks for adding
Correct.
that, Sachin. Let me come to you. Come back to you. Rajat, please go ahead and share your thoughts. We somehow lost you some time back. I hope network supports now.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So basically, when we talk about the renewable business, today it is largely solar and wind, but the industry has steadily pivoted towards battery storage now, which all of
Hmm.
you might be reading in the newspapers. So as far as
Hmm.
this sector is concerned, I think there is a good policy framework that government has stipulated, and I think there is a huge encouragement as far as the government policy is concerned, and the funding
Right.
for these projects are also sufficiently available. One of the key suggestions which if I could put forth is, these projects typically the raw material is the money, right? So more than 75 to 80% of the project cost is funded by debt, while 20 to 25% is arranged through equity. As far as debt funding during the construction stage is concerned, typically because of the risk associated during the construction phase, the interest rates are slightly on the higher side. But once the project gets into the operational stage, the credit rating significantly improves, and of course, the interest rate also potentially starts coming down. One of the key bottleneck as renewable project developer that we face is lenders charging prepayment premium. Right today, if you want to go to a lender and ask them that either you reduce the interest rate or allow us to refinance these loans at a cheaper rate, these lenders create some kind of exit barrier, and today that's sometimes demotivating to go for any kind of refinancing. So if we have to develop significant amount of projects and generate energy through renewable means, and especially adding battery into the renewable portfolio, there has to be some kind of policy framework and capping of the prepayment premium, or not have any prepayment premium at all, right? If you look at it
Hmm.
from a retail angle, today, if there is a retail borrower wants to prepay, there is no prepayment premium applicable, right? So
Hmm.
if you have to make this sector more vibrant, I think that is one of the thing which has to kind of come in. In renewable sector, there is a funding pool available called infra debt fund, right, which government of India
Okay.
had created quite some time back, and they had suggested that this debt fund can refinance and provide funding at a cheaper rate, once the project achieves operation. And today, the benchmark waiting period for this, infra debt funds is 360 1 year after the construction is
Hmm.
completed. But 1 year is a significant amount of time. As far as renewable project is concerned, it is okay for a road project. But as far as renewable is concerned, the kind of capacity is pre-sold through power purchase agreements. I think government could, because this is regulatory driven, government could consider reducing this, 1 year to 3 months, or have a rating benchmark that if you have some kind of A-rated company, after operation, the infra debt fund can start coming in and refinance these projects at a much cheaper rate. So that is one of the suggestions that I had. In renewable sector, green hydrogen and ammonia is coming up as a big investment, and government is encouraging that significantly. But one of the thing which currently is not captured is, unlike a typical solar or wind project, green ammonia is still not classified as an infrastructure kind of sector. It is still coming in as a manufacturing. So a lot of benefits that comes in as part of kind of green ammonia, that as being infrastructure is not accruing to kind of green ammonia projects. And to
Sure.
be the sector be competitive and encourage the investment, that is something that one can look at, including if you are exporting this green ammonia to various countries, whether it is Europe or Japan, and we are importing, then possibly net foreign exchange can be considered over a longer period of time rather than 10 years, because these
Right.
projects are very long term projects. So these are the kind of small interventions. If it is done as far as renewable sector is concerned, there will be a significant amount of more investment can come in, more private capital, not only from the
Right.
country but outside also can start coming in as well.
Right, 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 Rajatji. I think that was meaningful one. Understood the different aspects of renewable one. I think we got broad views and I think great thoughts from all of you. Now let me get into one specific question with each one of you. DK sir, let me come back to you. You highlighted a great picture of India, which is in a way a India story which everyone believes on. As we are growing economy, we are marching towards a developed economy. My question to you, sir, is macro is absolutely great today. The problem is with the micro. And in this situation, when government has done GST rationalization, DTC revamp, it's been done, there is an estimation that maybe 2 to 3 crores of uh, loss will be there with the government. Considering this, do you think that the government will have a strong spending power now? And looking at geopolitical situations where everybody is expecting huge certainty, more incentives, do you think government will take a strong measures to support spending going ahead? Sir, I think you have kept yourself on mute.
Yeah, one spending I think which government will have to keep supporting is on the capex front. Although it will not be at the same pace that we saw post the pandemic, because the capex was growing close to 20% per annum. Now I think it will be more aligned to the national nominal GDP growth, which essentially means that government capex to investment, government capex to GDP, nominal GDP ratio will remain constant. So I think that much they will have to keep doing, and I think in the last two budgets they have shown that I think they are trying to maintain that push to investments. Now, as far as I think providing incentives, I think it's very critical. So if you look at the nature of private investment now, there are newer sectors emerging which never were there, I mean, before. So CRISIL, for instance, estimates that about 25% of the industrial capex will come from new age sectors like semiconductors, I think solar, and many, I think, other chemical, new types of specialty chemicals, etc. And so the nature itself is changing, and some of the investments are self-propelling, like the data centers, because there is a huge demand, 5G, cloud, etc. But there are others which require support. I think let's take the case of two sectors I want to specifically point out: electronics and pharmaceutical. Both of them
Right.
have done reasonably well. I think electronics has done phenomenally well as far as the exports are concerned. Now, both of them import components from China. And I think in electronics, we are trying to increase the value added part, and there's further incentive for setting up component manufacturing, etc. Now, the issue is that can you replicate the success of electronics in other sectors? In pharmaceutical, I think it's not that easy. I mean, API comes from China, but you have very low R&D in the country. So if you want to push investments up, you will have to incentivize R&D. Without that, I think you will never be able to produce APIs the way you want to do that, become self-sufficient, etc. Segments where I think you don't need to push at all, I think, is petroleum, cement, steel. I think all this construction that is taking place is taking care of the demand for these sectors. Where again, I think you'll have to provide support is textiles. Textiles, I think we are hit by very high tariffs on textiles, and you can't find alternate markets very quickly. So textiles will require support from the government. And similarly, I think chemicals also to some extent face fierce competition from China. So investment is a little cagey to go ahead to move fast. So I think there is a very complex environment in which we are operating, and depending on, I think, what you want to push, what is your strategy, I think you'll have to keep supporting different kind of sectors. So I think coming back to the overall investment level here, I think I just want to make a point that government has supported capex in the post-pandemic world, but now I think they are relying on private sector to take up pattern. The investment to GDP ratio is at around 30%, which is lower than what we have achieved in the past. It used to be 35-37% also. Now it's well understood that capital deepening or raising the investment to GDP ratio is very critical for sustaining high growth, which is required for your Viksit Bharat objective of becoming a developed nation when you touch 100 years of independence. Now, sorry. So I think so. How do you promote private investment? I spoke about a little bit of it, but I think the more important part is that if everybody is looking for stability in a highly uncertain environment, I think that itself, I think, is a little contradictory. And so the risk appetite in general has reduced, and certainty you can create to some extent on the external front through the foreign trade agreements, etc., because that will give you some kind of an assured market and so on and so forth. So I think a mix of stuff will be required to keep the expenditures on, and I would say that the tilt should be towards capital expenditure, because that has higher multiplier effects for the economy.
Perfect thoughts, sir. I think maybe capital expenditure the government will have to do, perhaps with not the same speed, but they cannot go away with, I think, meaningful thoughts. But yes, I think there is a strong need from the private sector to push up now. If they don't want to push up, I think then what are the problems that needs to be resolved? Because I think the private capex has not picked up despite rate cut, despite so many other feasibilities that has happened. Noted your points. Anita ma'am, let me come back to you now, and maybe I don't have a specific question. I have so many, but let me give you one scenario here, ma'am. One, only 9 to 10 crore people are paying the tax, but they also pay GST. And I myself or everyone even pays a tax on chai, including GST. The question is, do you think a lot need to be rationalized on a taxation part? Because still an individual, he gets his first job, earns maybe 20,000 rupees, his first salary, but he gets his salary and then he compares ease of living, ease of life, perhaps he doesn't get it. Do you think strongly that there has to be a great rationalization, though the government has done a lot?
See, I'm not an expert on indirect taxes. Let me start with that. I have my knowledge base is basically on direct taxes. But what I see in India is that the ratio of direct taxes to indirect taxes has increased over the period. We are paying more direct taxes than we pay indirect taxes, and that is the right way, because indirect taxes are kind of regressive. You pay the same tax on a toothpaste that a house help in your house pays. While direct taxes, you pay your tax bill goes up corresponding to your income going up. So there is scope for further rationalization of indirect taxes. But I think our route is right. Indirect taxes should come down if you want a more equitable society, and direct taxes ratio should go up. And when I say there are 8 crore taxpayers, these are only tax filers. I qualified it earlier. Out of these 8 crore plus, 5 crore pay no tax at all. Neither TDS nor advance, no tax is paid at all. And it shocks me that 983 companies, 983 taxpayers, let's not say companies, 983 taxpayers account for 30% of your taxes. So there's no depth as it is within the tax system. So it's not a question of rationalizing further, it's a question of improving compliance so that
Right.
what you have on your statute book as the tax, you are able to collect that. So instead of looking at rates, look at facilitating compliance. Now you have, at least in the direct taxes, if you do your own tax filings, you would realize department is pre-filling your tax returns because they have the data. They are giving you an annual information statement where you can practically see all your financial transactions being reflected.
Yes.
Based on this data, based on advanced data analytics, department is now in a position to force compliance. And that's what should be the route. You facilitate making it easy for people to file their taxes. And that's happening. Like I said, out of the 8 crore tax filers, the cases selected for scrutiny are less than 3 lakh. Less than 0.5% cases go for tax audit or what we call the tax scrutiny. That means 99.5% taxpayers don't have to see the face of income tax department. In this kind of a scenario where you have very little number compared to your overall base that you have, in which you are asking them to give some explanation, some details, the impression being created in the market is that tax department is harassing, tax department is litigation minded, etc., etc. How does it work perversely? This removes the trust between an individual, between a citizen and the tax department. Because people feel if we pay our taxes, we are going to get into their net, we'll be harassed. So the compliance suffers. While the actual position is very little segment of the taxpayer is subjected to scrutiny. And now the way we have structured the system, if you are subjected to scrutiny, you can go in appeal against whatever assessment is done to the CIT appeal. And if the CIT appeal order comes in your favor, department cannot agitate it further to the tribunal unless the tax effect for that particular year is more than 60 lakhs. You can't go to the tribunal, department can't go to the tribunal. From tribunal, department cannot go to the high court unless the tax effect tax effect is more than 2 crore. From high court, department cannot go to Supreme Court unless the tax effect is more than 5 crores. So in this kind of a scenario, people having a general impression that it's not good to comply, in fact, that needs to be dispelled. And forum like your print media, the electronic media, they have to get the message across that if you file your tax returns, the chance of your getting a notice from the department is absolutely very little. And if you do get a notice, it will be data-driven inquiry.
100%, ma'am. Thanks for that explanation. But just one quick point here, ma'am, is do you think that now, because the government has extended the bracket of tax rationalization, specifically DTC, given 2 options, now perhaps people push themselves to pay and comply more? Do you think now will this scheme work?
Yes. And in fact, I get very surprised when people say it's very complex now. There is a new tax regime, there is an old tax regime, which to opt for. Please go and see the CBDT website. There is a tax and income calculator there. You can feed in your figures, and in 5 minutes, you have your tax liability as per the old tax regime and your tax liability as per the new tax regime. You go for the new tax regime. In fact, simply said, if your tax deductions are less than 7 lakhs, you have to go in for the new tax regime because that will be more tax efficient for you. If your tax exemptions are more than 7 lakh, or if your income is about 25 lakhs, more than 8 lakhs, it makes no sense for you to go for the new tax regime. You can take advantage of the old tax regime. And in my view, this should also be an interim measure. At some point, people would realize with the tax rate what they are, future adjustment which can come, that it is better to have a simpler tax system, no exemption, no deduction, no litigation, no interpretational issue. Pay your taxes, maybe at a rate which you find acceptable, and get done with.
Sure, ma'am. Let me move ahead and bring Yatish back here. Yatish ji, my question to you is specifically on the regulatory compliances and the approvals that the real estate firms needs. I still remember one of the top builder from the Mumbai once told to go for at least 45 to 50 approvals before started digging, for my project. Right. So on the compliance part, on the regulatory discipline, what is it perhaps that the budget can do, to ease the life of the real estate firms and the real estate sector as such?
So Amol, as a matter of fact, after agriculture, we are the largest real estate offers the largest employment for the country. In terms of statistics, virtually 70 million odd people are working directly, indirectly for the sector today. And this number is supposed to sort of, given the correct push, double. Adding to what Rajat was saying, somewhere we are also in that sweet spot where we are part infra. Maybe my residential and commercial may not really qualify, but we've got hotels and hospitals and other related spaces. See, a very important aspect today, Amol, is that unlike the West or the East, India is in that very peculiar stage where we are still stuck in the old rules. The banks, though they realize that we require funding, for instance, their TAVs don't envision a scenario where they give us a funding for more than 5 or say 10 years max. For a infra player, it'll maybe take 5 years for the project to get completed. Overseas, in the West or the East, you have a 15 or a 20-year credit line available to you so that you can plan your cash flows. There's no burden. Today, what we do as a part of Jugaad, knowing that the system doesn't allow me, is that I will take the funding for 5 years and then I will get another financial institution to come and refinance me. So I am working in a constraint and I found a solve to it. The right thing to do is, why not get into that regulatory mindset where the period is expanded? See, times have changed. The quantum today, adding to what Anita ma'am just shared, there are these appeal limits, but is a 60 lakh tax effect limit actually valid for today? It may have been very valid 10 years ago. That also requires rationalization today. We are still stuck in what the IT Act, when it was introduced, what were the limits then? They have not really been nationalized. And now coming to RE, today, if I want to buy land, there was again the 2010 era where there was a lot of speculation happening in land. You asked me, the question you had posed to me was real estate. Why is it that an apartment, Gurgaon being an exception of Bombay, is it so expensive? See, what are the ingredients for me going and selling an apartment? What are the input costs? So raw material for me is land, which in a central business district would be expensive. The second would be, what is the cost of buying that land? Today, if I have to go and get a land financing done, the RBI doesn't allow a bank to fund a land acquisition. I have to invariably end up, not even an NBFC will be able to cut the sort of check size that I require. I need to then go and tap into the overseas market, the AIFs, the global funds. And what is the typical post hedge cost or the post tax cost that it sort of costs me? It's in the range of anywhere between 18 to 22%, as opposed to what an Indian bank would have let me at, say, around in early double digits, say at best 10 or 11%, even for a grade. It could have been lower. So these are certain reforms which are essential. RE has become the bad boy, especially North India. And unfortunately, the last 10 years, as we often discuss in boardrooms, we are very proud about that if you were to look at North India, out of, say, 100 developers, 95 have shut shop. There is either an IBC sitting on them, there is a Supreme Court appointed committee sitting on them. But for those 5 players like us, what the 95 did or did not do wrong, or sort of should not have done, we ought not be paying the price for that. There
Right.
are reforms that are needed.
The
We are,
point
as
is
I
100 crore flat, 100 crore cost is somehow
so
people
see,
at
that's
large
an
cannot
exception.
consume.
In
So,
Bombay, a mall in Bombay, you have a
absolutely.
250 crore apartment that got auctioned. So there are
Absolutely.
outliers everywhere. The other day,
Right.
the Elon Musk CFO was there, where suddenly he was hired at a 250 crore pay packet. So, then all three CFOs sitting here, we should be ought to, go to our management and say, boss, iska 10% hi kar do. So there are outliers. So, but we
Absolutely.
need to streamline things. So, in the streamlining activity,
Agree, Yatishji.
yeah,
I agree with you,
when we
Yatishji.
talk of streamlining, approvals,
Yes.
licensing approvals. See, real estate is a
Right.
very state-specific subject. So this
Yes.
single window concept is also inherent and should be there in real estate also. When I'm putting my money in, I bought a parcel of land. I'm unsure when will my license come? When will my RERA come? When will my mining approval come? When will I be able to excavate? When will the building plan get approved? Will I be able to load a TOD, TDR onto it or not? The time I buy the land till the time I launch, there is an 18-month gap. If I was to collapse that into, say, a
Yes.
1 day window or a 30-day window, it's ease of doing business. So coming back to my original point, what we are all looking for is policy continuity. The fact that the government is forward looking, but the fact
Yatishji, I copy you. Let's hope let's hope the policy continuity remains there. But thank you so much for giving us this
yeah, yeah. Well,
explanation. So
just
tomorrow,
one point,
we will-
it's not about being faster, Amol. The fact is, I need
yes,
to go to bed sleeping soundly. That the decision that I have taken today is going to be valid tomorrow, and there's not going to
correct.
be a retrospective amendment as we are facing today.
Wow.
Policy
Wow.
stability is the key.
Yes, yes. No, noted your points. I think this explanation helps people who would perhaps feel very sad after looking at 250 crore or 100 crore pricings of the lavish or the luxurious apartments. But the point I was trying to, tell you, and I think you explained it really well, is in fact, veteran economist and the financial analyst, a well-known figure, Ruchir Sharma also did a research, shared a research very recently, which said that the property prices in Mumbai has increased by 15 times, and 8 out of 10 people cannot find an affordable house in cities like Bombay or Delhi. So, but thank you so much for giving us reasons in terms of what goes behind it. Rajji, let me come back
And
to
a solve,
you.
Amol, I have a 2 crore apartment for everyone here. So we have that solved for you at
I
the
think you have
GIC.
marketed it really well. You have marketed it really well. Rajatji, my question to you now is very specific in terms of macro story looks good. Government has pushed a lot of infrastructure projects and the capex. Why the private segment, including your sector, is not pushing up, not pulling up socks and investing? What are you or your colleagues, your industry, and specifically CFOs are waiting for?
So I think specific to renewable sector, there are a couple of things. Of course, the input prices. I think I was talking to ma'am also sometimes back. Government gave incentive to various domestic players, and they banned the module import from China in 2022. And today we are sitting in 2025. The module prices in China and India, Indian module prices almost are 50% higher than Chinese module prices. So, I mean, clearly, China, of course, gives little bit incentive to various players. And now they have removed those incentives as well. And even after removing those incentives, their prices are much lower because the Indian module players have to buy the inputs from China only. So that is the reason, because there is no research and development and innovation happening, and that has not happened in this sector. And going forward, when we are going to install so many batteries, because renewable is only successful when you install batteries for the night supply or the morning supply. Today we are completely dependent on China, And you might have read in newspapers that lithium has backed out. I do not know, what is the truth behind that for an Indian corporate. We do not have certain technology. If we do not develop those technology in house and we are not given those kinds of incentives, we have to be dependent, or our cost structure will be extremely high. So that is one part I think all of us are been highlighting. Second is, as far as project execution is concerned, specific to electricity sector, it comes under concurrent list. When something comes under the concurrent list, both central government approval and state government approval is required, and that also takes time, and there is a significant delay. So I think there has to be rationalization when we have to do these investments, reduce the number of approvals that is required. One of the key raw material for a solar business is the land. And even if if I am setting up a project under land from lease from a farmer, I still have to go back to the government and issue a government order for enabling those leases, and that costs money. So there are number of things, and we can actually list, keep on listing these issues. But I think there are a lot of issues. It has to be rationalized, specific sector by sector one has to look at. I think the real estate sir spoke about, and the renewable also, there are a lot of issues. But having said that, I think government has done a lot of things. There are a lot of things still to be done. If you have to be sustainable, you have to be innovative. But I think long way to go.
Sachin, what is your view on private capex not picking up? You're a traditional company. You are in fact in a segment where there will be demand, right? People will eat rice, no doubt about it in India. But still, I
Correct,
see
correct.
even FMCG companies are not investing. They are not going aggressive.
So, Amol, what is happening now regarding, I was just initially also talking the demand, yes, my premium products, if you talk about the premium products are picking up, the K-shaped, the premium products where the margins are more. But there is a mass thing. There is certainly certain lacking that is happening. So that things need to be neutralized in that aspects. Being a export driven company like me, there is an export and there is a tariff hanging on. The tariff is there. A 50% tariff is there in the US that is being imposed, and my 40% sales happens to be in the US territory. So that
Hmm.
hangover of things, the hangover, the
Hmm.
kind of the things that are happening, because at the same time you are dealing with the regulatory aspects as well. There is a,
Hmm.
if I talk about the transfer pricing mechanism, the transfer pricing, because we have a subsidiary in the US, the transfer pricing mechanism might not be suited for a company like ours, because there you are making a sales to different territories, and that territory might be hit by a tariff. My margins might not be comparable. So there
Correct.
should be some mechanism that needs to develop, so that I am somewhat incentivized for making it in this kind of turbulent environment. I am able to export. I am getting that foreign exchange inbuilt in the country in this. So my margin shouldn't be judged in that manner, in that, because as you know, the US or the India, they are at the same tax rates. So I might not be tempted to do a transfer pricing on inflated tax rate. So some
Right.
kind of mechanism needs to be developed in that aspects. And further adding to that, now there are different platforms. Export-led company like us. There is a EIA, there is a embassy, there is a PIDA, there is there is different DGFT customs. You have to face it to different aspects or different look different scenarios.
Noted.
So the
Noted.
single window
Yeah.
that should be there.
Sachin, let me pause you here and bring you Anita ma'am quickly here. Anita ma'am, there was also a question. I think many of the areas have covered, but there was a question from one of the viewer also on the compliance part. How can Budget 2026 address tax certainty and reduce litigation, which continues to be a major concern for India Inc. And retrospective amendment or all these issues keeps on happening. In fact, the recent case, apart from what Sachin just said, the recent case is about Tiger Global, which invested in Flipkart, and Supreme Court gave a different ruling on that. What is it that the government can do, ma'am?
See, Tiger global case, I think you can have a separate panel on that. It's a very complex case with
Right.
complex interpretations involved. The government, I think, has done enough to address the litigation fears of small taxpayers. What we are left with is a segment of corporate taxpayers and some of the bigger taxpayers and international entities which operate in India. So my view is you don't require any statutory tinkering because your law as it is a good law. It's the question of how the law is being implemented. And for that purpose, CBDT has the power to issue circulars, and CBDT has to strengthen its own internal mechanism to ensure that they take one constant view. And there is an issue of interpretation of treaties. US, when it does double taxation avoidance agreement, they do a technical explanation with that. And it is at the same time when the treaty is done. So public knows what they mean by every article in the treaty and every word in the treaty, how it will be interpreted. India doesn't have that policy. So at least for the amendments being done to the treaties, let's start coming out with a technical explanation. And for that, you don't need any statutory change in the act. So if you want to address international concern, this is one of the options available to you.
I actually wanted to take a couple of more questions, but I think all of you spoke from your heart, shared, great stories, or I must say, use case studies with, what is happening in your sector. So the time is absolutely up here. Thank you so much for sharing your meaningful thoughts and being part of this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amol.
Thanks a lot, Amol. Thanks.